Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lowdown on Low Code. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, folks, if you've been enjoying the podcast, if you've been getting value from the podcast, please go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's help get the word out to like-minded folks who are interested in application design and low code and digital process automation in particular. Hey, we've got a great show for you today. I'm really excited about this one. We're going to talk about the area of design, which we've talked about before. If you didn't catch the episode with Andrew Hogan early on in the lifespan of Lowdown and Low Code, go back and catch it. Andrew is the head of insight and research for Figma. He had some terrific insights for us. But today we're going to really focus on the area of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence will affect the area of application development, user experience, and low code. I'm here with Ryan Duguid. Ryan's role is going to change just a little bit today. So instead of Ryan being the co-host, we're going to have Ryan be the guest, and Ryan's going to talk about product design along with our guest who will focus on the area of design as part of application development. How are you, Ryan? Good to see you, buddy.
Doing well, hanging out on the East Coast, a little bit of a time zone delta here today. I thought I should change a costume. I should do that. I'm playing a different role type of thing I used to do back in the day at conferences when I was presenting. So like, I'm now a product guy. I'm no longer like theorist on the space. So should be a good,
Well,
fun conversation,
we
Rob.
love your
Looking forward to
acting
it.
chops, Ryan. You're looking particularly Sean Connery like today, so that's a good thing.
I'll work
Hey,
on the
today,
accent.
so today we have a very special guest and someone who I had the honor of working with in the past. For those of you on YouTube, you can see that I'm an old fella. I'm that old fella that you've been warned about. And that means that when I say that I really have a tremendous amount of respect and really so much enjoyed working with this person as a colleague, that it's going against a really large data set because I've been at this for a long time. But somebody I had the opportunity to work with at IBM. What a pleasure! What an honor! Please join us in welcoming IBM Master Inventor Laura Rodriguez.
Well, it's so great to see you again, Rob. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I was so delighted that you would come and join us today, and I just can't wait to hear the insights on this topic. So
I'd love to hear, Rob, along with your questions. I'd love to hear where that title comes from. It's such a fascinating. I thought one time when I was a chief evangelist, I thought that was kind of an interesting title, but master inventor is a whole nother level.
let's get into that in a sec. It's a real thing at IBM, and it comes with in Laura's case 17 patents, of which I got to work with her on one, which is pretty cool. Um, if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I want to tell a story about one that Laura shared with me when we first met, and it really had a great deal of impact on me. So Laura told me a story that during graduate school, while she was working on her master's thesis, she did the thesis was based on interaction models for for social media, and she recognized very early on in this journey in social media that there are things that people could do that could get themselves into trouble, particularly young people. Maybe you post something that's going to come back and haunt you later, which kind of happened a lot, right? So the topic of this thesis was how to make people aware, particularly young people, aware that they're doing something potentially risky. You hit the submit button, and of all things, a ninja star flies to the screen. It sticks in the post, and if you click on the ninja star, you get some insight as to why this might not be the wisest thing for you to be doing at that moment. It really stuck with me, I think, because number one, the vision that Laura had, that what was going to happen in the future and how it played out just as she feared. And then the interaction model, and making the interaction model so compelling for people, and just that focus on UX. But that's sort of my story, Laura. But we always like to start these podcasts with your story, because we're just fascinated with our guests and how they came to be and how they came to find themselves in this industry and doing what they're doing. So how'd you get here?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that project because that's the first time I was doing user experience design without even knowing that was a job title. Like I discovered that was a job title when I got hired at IBM and they're like, "You're a user experience designer." I was like, "Oh, let me Google that." But I've always been really fascinated by people's relationship with technology. And really, technology is evolving so quickly and humans aren't. Like I instantly became very human centered early on because, no offense, but we have fairly primitive brains with lots of limitations. And so I felt this advocacy that systems needed to meet us on our terms, not the other way around. And that played a big role in kind of defining my path forward and why I'm so interested in things. And I should mention, that's why AI fascinates me so much because it's the opportunities for it to become more natural to us. And every single patent I have genuinely was me doing a project and then saying, but if it could do this, it would be so much better if it could anticipate that. And so I'd go in this like playground of what ifs that we would never invest in. But then I found out it was novel and it was something we could patent. And that kind of became a great outlet for me.
That's so cool. So tell us, what is a master inventor? It is a real thing.
Well, I think they make the title sound really cool because they want people to want it. Because I love it. It feels magical. It's essentially a nomination you get to recognize your efforts towards IBM's intellectual property. And also, you go beyond that to mentor other people within IBM or to help create toolkits that kind of advance the type of brainstorming that people can do in strategic areas. So I love working with first time inventors like you. And, just again, it's technically outside of your day job. So it's an honor to spend time thinking on these things that are, you know, side quests, I should
So I think not only was I a first time, I think it would be my one and only time. So
say.
I've got 17 less patents than you do. Hey,
I think
one
it's
of the
about
things
getting
that,
Rob, it's about getting scared by like the process, right? Like having to write the documentation and work with the lawyers.
yeah, that is scary. IBM's very good at it. However, hey, speaking of IBM, I think there's something that I kind of want to probe on a little bit. So when Laura and I worked together, IBM had a pretty, I think, compelling model to how business product management worked with design and with engineering to kind of put together these three legs of the stool, and really come up with something special. Um, Ryan, we brought you on as a guest today because we really want to get your ideas around product development. What is that perfect working relationship between engineering design and design? How do you see that playing out?
Jesus, so this is sharing opinions, and so I'll always caveat this with your mileage may vary, and these are my opinions, right? So there's a big asterisk on this, but the industry, what people always love to talk about is the healthy tension, and usually it they talk about it between product and engineering, but it's product engineering and UX, and there's this idea that everyone's got these competing needs or priorities that they're having to fight it out with one another, and then you put the healthy word in front of it to make it sound okay. And in my experience, and it's a limited experience, right? The minute you say healthy tension, it's tension, and tension is not healthy. And so you find a lot of arguments and a lot of us versus them, and words matter in this regard. And so, you know, from my perspective, what's really important is to get everybody aligned towards a common goal, right? So vision, mission, and values is obviously a big part of that at the company level. And then starting to look at a common set of principles. So like, what are our product principles? What's important to us? What sacrifices are we willing to make? Which ones aren't we willing to make? And under what conditions? And that really kind of gives you the swim lanes to operate in. So I like to think of it as your standard operating procedures. And once you nail those down as a group, then you can free yourself up to think and be more creative. And I also think it's a big part of it is about getting everybody aligned to the goals of the organization, right? So whether you're a private entity or a public entity, but like, who are your stakeholders? Are they shareholders and investors? Is it citizens that you're trying to help out as a nonprofit? And what's important to them, and always framing everybody in that context, because then you've got a common understanding of why we're doing this. Because otherwise you start getting into the classics. Well, engineering is just going to go do technical stuff for technical sake. Product people, we've got to have features, features, features for our users. Design people, there's a new framework, there's a new standard. We want to change everything. We want to flip from React to Angular or back again. These kind of weird things start to play out when everyone's getting detracted from what the real goal is. So I think it's about that shared understanding, the customer, their domain, their problem space, their hopes, dreams, and desires. And then, what's happening around you, what's your competitive landscape look like, and how do you then bring all that into the solutions that you're working on together. So I like to think of it as having a healthy working relationship, not a healthy tension. And as part of that, making sure as look at onboard people into my organization that they understand each other's needs and perspectives, right? So engineering people have to worry about technical debt building up, and they have to worry about updating frameworks, and they have to worry about scale and reliability and security. Product people have to keep driving innovation for the customers and differentiating from the market. UX people have to make it easier to understand, easier to onboard, fewer clicks all the time, more natural, Laura, to your point, more natural experiences, taking advantage of how the world's evolving around us. And then as you start to understand each other's perspectives on that and find, an understanding of what that means in those other roles, then you're best positioned to understand why everybody's sort of advocating for the things they are.
So, Laura, first thing, I come to IBM, they put me through design thinking training, right? I'm not a designer, but they put me through design thinking training. IBM was really, I think, at the forefront of putting design first in terms of how software is built. I mean, candidly, I'd been with other software companies where the engineers built the software and the designers came in after the fact and were told to make it pretty. Just a terrible idea. How do you react to what Ryan had to say about the working relationship, and then how would you propose that working relationship should be?
Perfect reflection of my experience and best practices on the path forward. A lot of it is check your ego at the door, right? We're ultimately all on the same team.
Yeah.
I think traditionally it was three in a box, right? Product owner, engineer, and design. And I'm noticing this shift to four in a box because data scientists are having a seat at a table and a voice
Right.
that we hadn't seen. And everything machine learning really relies on the skill set that they bring. So I've never worked with data scientists more in my life than I have in the past couple months, and it's been invigorating. So I like that new shift.
That's very cool. Hey, folks, listen, just a quick break. If you like what you're hearing, Lowdown on Low Code is brought to you by analysis.tech. All of the podcasts are up on analysis.tech if you want to interact more with myself or Ryan Duguid or John Reimer, the inventor of the term low code, or Dave Marcus, who's got massive experience in this area, including partner experience, Francis Carden, the founder of OpenSpan, one of the first RPA companies, Andy Bartels, former Forrester chief economist. You can find us all on analysis.tech. So please take a few minutes to come visit. Guys, I want to shift gear and get into this whole topic of AI because that's what we're here for. And Laura, I want to start with you, and I'm thinking kind of shorter term here. How should we be thinking about design in this era of AI? How should we think about the computer anticipating our needs? And let's just kind of look sort of like at the landscape today. How should our listeners be thinking about that?
So it's so different in user interfaces where my entire 12-year as a user experience designer, because the past year has been product strategy, but we were creating click paths, right? You clicked here, you went there, and it was deterministic. Like everyone hit the same goal and we could measure that they completed a task. And when you're looking at conversational experiences that are non-deterministic, people can literally use the exact same prompt and get different outputs, or their goals can be slightly differentiated based on their role. That has been whiplash for our design team because you can't use, the traditional methods that we had previously used. And really what this has resulted in is AI fluency being at the forefront for the design discipline more than ever before. We really are beholden to, or I should say at the mercy of understanding AI's capabilities. So we don't go into automagical thinking on what it's even able to do. So the design problems we're solving are fundamentally different. Not plug, but this great book, Big Data, Big Design, that I'm reading by Helen Armstrong at NC State. She has a talk with John Zimmerman in there, who is a professor at Carnegie Mellon. And he's working with his students right now on this perspective of machine learning as a design material. And that's so different than the way we've had to approach projects in the past, because we had the privilege of not having to understand the guts of the technology that was creating what we were doing. We knew there was maybe a database or an API we could hit, but we didn't have to get deeper than that. But now you really have to be good at what you do in this space.
So that's fascinating. Thank you, Ryan. Same question to you from a product development perspective. How are you thinking about this differently with the current landscape?
Yeah, I think, and going back to Laura, when you were talking about the invention concept, and you just had these years of the what if I could this and what if I could that, and I feel like for a long time, like a lot of us in product have, you're always thinking like that, and then somewhere this little voice pops up, it's like, but it's not technically possible, right? And it's always, and part of this is a risk if you, like I came from a coding background, so you have to be super careful and not go straight to, yeah, that's too hard, can't do that, that's going to be, and I think one of the things that changes is bringing back a kind of an anything's possible, like a childlike mindset, right? And that inventive, creative mindset that says maybe we can now do that, and we can take away some of those constraints and just. I like to get people thinking, like, imagine, so AI pixie dust will solve any problem you ever thought you had. Now, it might not, but at least start there in terms of what you're thinking about. So I think some of this depends, like, where the future takes us as people start to shift that thinking. Because on the one hand, you see just these incredibly creative solutions. And on the other hand, I've started to see a lot of technically led initiatives. And so when you're talking, Rob, about that relationship between particularly engineering and design, I've seen a lot of companies where essentially kind of engineers are trying to take over and steer a little bit because, well, this AI stuff's all hard and complex. And so we'll just build this thing this way because this is the tech we've got. And that's leading to these weird sort of forced experiences that almost feel like I'm getting back in an IVR type scenario of press 1 for, press 2 for. Let's force a conversational experience on you because we can, not because it's the right thing, not because it's contextually relevant, but because that's what we've been told we should have. Our investors have said we should have it. My CEO wants it because he promised it to someone. Chatbot. Everyone's now got this bot thing. Is it making anything easier for the end user? Is it solving a problem we couldn't have solved prior to this? And so, like that sort of, I worry a bit about that at the moment because I see a lot of signs of that. And so I think we have to try to steer it back to, okay, like what are the problems and how does this help us in new and unique ways? So to be determined, right?
So, Laura, that's some pretty vigorous head nodding going on your side. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think you're spot on because, you know, integrating AI is expensive and people are looking for
Right.
a return on investment. And that naturally results in top down. And top down is business objective, dollar sign focus. And so there is this, I think we need to get to more of a balance of bottom up, user centered, solving the right problem focused. And so that's a little bit of a healthy friction.
That's a good healthy friction, right? For sure. Especially
So,
when there's a bill, because some of the things I've seen people solving problems now with calls to OpenAI, right? An API call that could be solved with a standard database query. Like that one's expensive, that one's cheap. Like maybe you should think about that.
it's deterministic conditional logic. Why are we bringing a computer in? We're just adding risk and massive expense. Hey,
Yeah.
Ryan likes to throw this example out all the time because I think of his Scottish background, but Scotty going into the past and he finds himself in San Francisco and he tries to talk to the computer and he says, "Computer." I think Ryan just likes to do the Scottish accent, but things are going to change, right? They're gonna change massively. I think back when you and Ryan, Laura, when you and I were working with Watson, there was a lot of conversations around that time around hey, not everything's going to be a voice interface. Don't be ridiculous. Like there are times when that is right. There's times when that is going to be blatantly wrong. But I kind of want to go to both of you and maybe start with you, Ryan, and say, look, we see this stuff. It's changing a lot, right? It's what, little over 2 years. We're coming up on 2 years or 3 years since ChatGPT launched.
I think like two.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's really, it's just two. It's crazy. And the massive changes we've seen with that, but massive investments, huge changes available through large and small learning models, and then new patterns emerging as well. If we sort of extrapolate, start to look out in the future, Ryan, maybe you could start with, what does this look like in 5-10 years? What does the user how does the user experience change when everything becomes more possible?
I wish I had that crystal ball. I could
Don't we all?
start something and crush it. It's super hard. Like I mean, the sort of the classic cop out on this one is like, I think we maybe sort of, that's the overestimate the long term and underestimate the short term. I mean, there's a lot of change and there's a lot of great applicability for conversational UI, and whether it's through text chat prompts or whether it's through voice, that technology has gone leaps and bounds. And in fact, you can really see it, right? Because you compare the experience you get with ChatGPT right now or others like it with talking to Alexa. You're like, oh boy, Alexa is really bad unless you want to set a timer. And it has no other comprehension. And I know people working on that, so they're going to beat me up about it. And like, I know they've got this one under control. It's just these things take time. But so I think there's a massive area for us to explore there. At the same time, I don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, we've got these, just to that previous discussion about, okay, are there easier ways to solve this? We have these understood metaphors. Our brains, Laura, to your point, like, our brains have, okay, tech went past us a little bit, but we've kind of figured out some stuff. Like, I understand my keyboard, I understand my screen, I understand that. So it's like, oh, how do we evolve these things together? And if one part of this doesn't actually go away, right? Like the concept, like what does an application look like in the future? Is it something totally different or not? Like, we've got to navigate that journey a bit. And so my sense is we're going to see some really near-term applications of the chat-based experience or the conversational experience that's going to blow everybody's minds. At the same time, I think some of that, what we now call legacy UI, is going to be around for a lot longer than people might expect, because there are contexts where it makes a lot more sense, and people understand it, and they're going to have to come on this journey as well as they figure out new interaction paradigms.
Laura, what does the future look like? I'm pretty sure you've been thinking about this. What does life
So,
look like 5-10 years from now?
so I could start with the 5 year, and what's emerging is, buzzwords around agentic AI, right? So going beyond information retrieval and text generation into it autonomously doing a task for you. And that's so awesome because it's going past these traditional product boundaries. And a lot of the conversations we're having internally at IBM are, do we have access to that API? Or can we get this information so it brings context into this space so that we can do something meaningful? So I'm really excited about, initially we're going to see it really fragmented because different roles, you're kind of automating a specific task. And then over the 5 year span, it should start to unify a little bit more in how it behaves and how it looks. If you want me to get into 10 year,
Sure.
I'm the very first person. I have a Medium post on this, looking back at like the 60s when there was this like hype on what the future is going to be. They even had like Disney had a theme park on this. And it's so funny. Like, it was most bulky hardware with buttons and wires, and it was like futuristic. So they couldn't conceive of what would happen in the future. So you're not going to get from me what it's going to look like, because I'm not getting on the record something that will make me sound stupid later. But I can
Yeah, like
confidently,
No flying cars then, no jets.
I think, forecast our relationship with technology. Um, which is ultimately what I care about, right? So I think we're going to be like, right now, our relationship with technology is like, it's a tool, we go to, it does the thing. But what we're going to be looking at is evolving that over time, where, like in the enterprise, for example, it's learning what you do for work over months, over years. It's there with you as you're growing in your career. It has an understanding of the organizational context in which you work. So there'll be this amazing fluidity in how it can assist you through all of that, that I think will be like unimaginably impactful. And so ultimately, AI will thrive when it's allowing us or empowering us to be our best selves and responsibly collecting the data we, just naturally make. So I'm excited about
Yeah.
that new relationship.
So I'm gonna play the old man, the curmudgeon, because again, those of you on YouTube can see me, and just sort of say, can we also sort of pump the brakes a little bit, because you guys, as you're looking at this vision, even and particularly, I think the issue is particularly acute with what we have developers have available to them today. The majority of what we're looking at with emerging AI technology today is based on models. Those models are probabilistic by nature. When we start talking about agentic, which has become the new hot word, we have things that are being done on our behalf based on probabilistic models, and they are not always, they're rarely, I should say, transparent. So the computer is making decisions. We don't know why it's doing it. It's doing things. How should we be thinking about these things in today's world where, there's a lot of knives in the toolkit and the developers may not be able to understand the risks associated with those? Am I just an old codger, or is this really a concern like right now? What are your thoughts, Laura?
I think that there are more kind of reactionary regulation that we're going to see than we kind of think about the future as dark, but you have a moment where they tried to create a really big corpus of data based on enterprise stuff, but oh no, salary information was coming up. We need to pull back. And so I think naturally we're going to be regulating ourselves and suing each other over, like that was my artwork. Why are you doing this? So it's going to be kind of, we step on the landmines and we slowly define those boundaries a little bit more. A lot of it is also expectation management. I know that's a lot of what I do internally, is tell people if you're trying to use it for the wrong things and you're disappointed, like the superpower is really knowing what it is and using it in the right ways, because again, at the end of the day, it's cost prohibitive, isn't cheap. There's token limits, there's all of these kind of consequences around it, that if you don't fully in depth understand the knowledge of how it works, understand that it doesn't understand. This is pattern recognition on trillions of training data. It makes me at least feel a little bit calmer about realistically what that trajectory is, and that we're not going to like completely go off the rails.
Good. I'm glad you feel confident, because I feel less confident. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking back in my mind, I'm thinking we need the ninja throwing star for like the AI. The AI is about to make a decision or take an action on your behalf. Do you understand what's happening here? I I do for sure. I worry, right? Like history is littered with in the pursuit of science and progress is like, oh, we do this thing, um, and then and at the time we didn't understand the implications of it. We split the atom and things happen. We create a like button and things happen. And so I do worry a little bit that in pursuit of progress, AGI, God AI, whatever we want to call it, that there are certainly a set of people who are advocating for take the risks, see how it plays out, and we'll figure it out as we go along. And this could be like a bit of a dangerous time for that. Although people have said this all through history, right? I think it just boils. A lot of it's going to boil down to, certainly in the enterprise space. I think that sort of concept of what's a level of risk, right? So we live in this world very clearly where we're prepared to make trade-offs for benefits, right? Hey, I give all this data to Facebook, but in exchange, I get this level of connectivity, I think, to my friends and my environment I play in. And so people are getting familiar with that. And so I think when it comes to AI and enterprise, it'll be that trade-off that says, well, what am I willing to give up to get what benefit? What are the costs, risks associated with that? and is it worth it? So the classic one's going to be, well, if this is about dosing out chemotherapy treatment plans, probably not willing to take some risks with that one. If this is about, hey, Rob wants to go on vacation next week, should we auto approve that because we've looked at the patterns of who's taking vacation and when, and this seems reasonable? Sure, the cost of Rob getting an extra couple of days off is not that high for me. So I think that's what's going to steer a lot of folks, certainly in the enterprise, when they think about how to apply this technology.
Hey guys, this is really cool. I want to pull back to a little bit more of a mundane topic before we close out. So Laura, Ryan often talks about, I'm going to let him use the exact term he used, but inflicting software upon upon users. And ultimately, Lowdown on Low Code is about unleashing new development resources, right? So, your classic four in a box, that's not going to be the model for how a lot of this low code software gets developed. So we have to start thinking much more purposefully around how we can guide people away from the basic things, the purple font on the black background, the lack of the submit button on a form, these types of things. Ryan, maybe I could start with you and get your thoughts on how how we might see AI kind of stepping into a design role to help a non-professional developer / designer, because they'll probably be both.
Yeah, I think this is a challenge, right? So we have, when you're building product because it's what you do for a living, you're professionals, there's so many resources and skill sets available to you. And you spend a lot of time naturally thinking about who are these people, how are they using this, how does this work for them, and then we create low code software. So now it's a bit like splitting atoms and giving people like buttons. We're like, here's this toolkit that you can use to build any application you want, any way you want. We'd like to encourage you to do it responsibly. And so when I talk about that concept, and look, there are low code professionals who build incredible apps, but there are also people who are told, go build a thing for some people. And then as a result, and the impolite way of describing this is you vomit an application out at people and you make them use it. And then they give you feedback and say, we don't like this, we don't understand this. And it's because you as the low code developer, you don't have all those tools at your disposal, and you're not creating help content, and you're not putting in-app guidance and all this type of thing. And so I think we have to work out, if I could wave my magic wand, it would be to take a LoRa, take someone coming from the design and the UX and the invention background, and make the LoRa AI that sits in the corner as you build your low code app. That's like, what? Like, why are you doing that? Like, too many things here and too much information there, and you should be minimizing what you present to a person, and it's not obvious what they should be doing here. And here's some. So that's what I'd love to see. And I think if we can work out how to at least at the bare minimum at the start to feed in some rules and knowledge around basic user experience as we understand it today, to be able to then give real-time feedback to someone building in with low-code tooling, to just and suggestions and prompts around how this can come together experientially, so that the person on the other side can have a positive interaction with it, would be a really fantastic place to start.
So I want to make sure I'm not about to touch a high tension wire, Laura.
No, I got this.
So can we have Laura the co-pilot, complete with ninja stars, looking over the user's shoulder, able to help them through these processes? And I'm sorry, I'm just going back to a moment where we were in, I don't know, some IBM facility. I want to stay in New York somewhere. And they were demonstrating an assistant type of thing, and it was a woman, and you whacked me in the ribs with your elbow and said, "See, I told you, the assistant's always a woman." But with that in mind, can we have a co-pilot Laura sitting over people's shoulders?
I think that's one of many manifestations. It's exciting. Like in Figma today, you can kind of type out your intent and it'll create the layout with best practices built into it. So it's really amazing that people don't have to be thinking about components and layouts. They get to focus on the problem they're trying to solve. And I love that it's raising the ceiling on what people are capable of doing without deep expertise. There's this really awesome, like, new intermediate skill level that's a default, like it's hard to like
Yeah.
fundamentally really deeply mess up. And so I'm all about democratizing, app creation, but but AI can help you make the most beautiful app in the world, but it can't stop you from building the wrong thing beautifully.
Yeah.
And that's where human-centered expertise, moi, really needs to come in a non-digital form, because that takes an
Yeah.
acuity that I don't think AI would truly take on.
I think I
Great.
always
Thank
like
you.
to tell people you can't build the wrong thing the right way. I mean, you can, but like it doesn't help, right?
Yeah, that's well put too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Laura, one last question, and we're gonna exit the digital world for a quick moment. So tell us about what's happening in the world of board games.
I guess to give your audience context on
Yes,
this
please. That would be helpful.
massive pivot, my family and I are self-publishing a board game, which has actually been a channel for me to play with ChatGPT capabilities a lot, because I was finding infusing every use case and filling my skill gaps. But I digress. So you're asking someone who has over 100 board games and a bit of a purist. So, board games is this escapism from digital. It's really about getting together in person, handing analog physical assets. And so there's this kind of future where people are playing with hybrid gameplay a little bit more, where it's blending physical and digital. And what I've seen so far, those aren't my favorite gameplay experience, because right now it manifests as a phone. And now you have all of us looking at this little screen, and it's become central to the experience. And so if I had to like wave my fairy dust, I would love that any kind of technological advancements relative to board games complement and increase the immersion of that physical experience. So for example,
Right.
imagine, this might be a patentable idea, Rob, let's do it. Imagine you're doing a role-playing game, and this AI is listening, and dynamically it's generating the sound effects, the appropriate sound effects for where the story is going, and the music ambiance fits kind of, are we at war? Are we investigating? Like, that's the kind of thing where it's not central to the experience. But ultimately, you know, like I said, I'm a purist. My favorite games are from the 50s and 60s. Like, give me a good Yahtzee game, I'm there. And so let's just keep focusing on really balanced and interesting game mechanics. And like Dice Invasion, our game, it's the future of board games.
Oh, I'm so excited to learn more. So we're always looking for a good board game when everybody comes home for Christmas time. Laura, that
That should
was
be a Rob, that should be a question moving forward. We should ask all our guests, like, what's your favorite board game?
what's your favorite board game? I don't know. I think it's sort of like asking people, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite book you've read recently? And you get a lot of,
If they
so,
say Monopoly, just end the call.
I'm gonna put Risk out there as like that's a top contender for sure.
we're going to close on Laura's facial expression for that. Um, Laura, thank you so much for joining. It was so great to have you on. So great to be able to get your insights. Like, I kind of opened up today's podcast by saying that Laura was one of my favorite people I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and one of the people for whom I have the greatest respect. And hopefully the audience understands that now. It seems pretty clear to me. Ryan, thanks for playing the part of our product team today. Laura, thank you so much for coming on and being our design guru. And we haven't asked this question before, but would you consider coming on again in the future at some point?
I would be honored. This is really fun, and to have these kind of dialogues, I think there needs to be more of it. So I hope people really come away with some insights.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining today.
Fantastic.